this is one of the things that Islam, unfortunately today, has become characterized by. And many people, non-Muslims especially, whenever they speak of Islam, they speak of Sharia or Sharia, right? And so Sharia for them is cutting people's hands off and stoning people to death, right? So this has now become characteristic of Islam, and because of this, people hate Islam. Many people do. They hate Islam and see it as an affront to freedoms. So, okay, now just backtracking to this question, the way Islam has taught us, the way I understand, Islam has come for each day, for all eras, for all times and places. And it is the Sharia itself that demands to reflect the time of its era. So this is not something I'm saying, this is my understanding that the Sharia wants this. So today that Islam would have, and I've spoken of this before, trajectory ethics, that the ethics or trajectory hermeneutics would change as the ethics of the people change. And you see the Prophet sometimes saying things like this in the hadith that, oh, lawla anna qawmaki hadithu ahdin bil Islam, if your people weren't new Muslims yet, then I would have done this, but I won't, or I won't change the Kaaba because people will do this, or people will say this. So you see this in the hadith as well. Now, several of the ulama, namely people like Abul Qasim al-Burzali, especially from the Maliki madhab in the 7th century, 700s and so on, around that era, and people who come after him as well, had written that according to the maqasid of the Sharia, the Hudood would reflect the day and age. So Abul Qasim al-Burzali wrote on this, and he actually taught it, and this became the view in several parts of the Maghrib during his time, that they substituted the Hudood for financial penalties in their time, for what they called gharamat maliyah, and they said this is what the Sharia wants. And there was this famous debate in front of a Tunisian king as well, and the Tunisian king first of all adopted Burzali's view, and there's another Maliki ibn Shammah who debates him, doesn't accept his view, and then the king says, okay, I'm going to go to Ibn Shammah's view now. And the public go mad and say, no, we're not going back to Hudood. So then he says, okay, I'll just go back to Burzali's view. There's a famous story. But Imam Burzali was not speaking about if there was no sultan. Some other Maliki said if there was no sultan. He was speaking about the day and age has changed. And then you see people like the Ottoman famous, if you want to call him caliph or king of the time as well, Suleiman al-Qanuni, who around a similar kind of time or just shortly after does the same kind of thing. He substitutes the Hudood with gharamat maliyah, with financial penalties. In my understanding, in this day and age, the Hudood would be substituted by demand of the Sharia. So they would not be things like, in my understanding, definitely not things like stoning, but they wouldn't be things like cutting off the hand and stuff like this. They would be whatever is relative and relevant for the age. So, for example, custodial sentences or whatever is suitable or commensurate for the crime. That's my understanding. There's a huge precedence for this within fiqh. This is not an attempt to appease the West. These ulama came centuries before the West had ever risen to significance. And what's interesting is Ibn Hajar, in his commentary on Sahih al-Bukhari, speaks and shows about the hadith where somebody comes to the Prophet and says, I've done something wrong, and the Prophet says, have you prayed? And that's okay, it's forgiven. In that hadith, it doesn't mention what it was, but Ibn Hajar says in another riwayah, it mentions it was zina. And he says this is ala dhahir al-riwayah inda al-Hanabila, that according to the zahir of the riwayat or the adhar al-riwayat in the Hanabila and the Hanbali madhab, that al-tawbah, that jami' al-hudud tasqutu bit-tawbah. So all of the hudud drop with tawbah, and that was the qawl al-qadim lil Imam al-Shafi'i as well. And this is why this kind of reasoning you see right through to people like Shaykh Yahya al-Wallati al-Shanqiti and many of the later recent people. And this, my line of thinking, is in line with that. People today like Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya also say exactly the same thing. And so that's my understanding, that Hudood would not be that. And it's unfortunate that Islam has become characterized by that. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was a rahmatan lil alameen, a paragon of mercy, is today seen as a barbarian. And this is unfortunately upheld by certain people in the name of Islam. That's my understanding. Allahu Alam. Sheikh, if you could contribute. No,
No, that's fine.
some contribution.
No, that's fine because it becomes very long. But no, this is what you said, that's fine, inshallah.
This question is for you, Sheikh, and it's the last question.